Is anybody out there? Stephen Hawking launches a $100 million search for intelligent life beyond our solar system. Are we on the brink of a brave new world being discovered? Or is the mission a waste of money? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zaidan. Well, it's the most intensive search for alien life yet. Famous physicist Stephen Hawking and Russian businessman Yuri Milner are injecting $100 million and a whole lot of brainpower, of course, into the search for intelligent extraterrestrial life. Well, the project is called Breakthrough Listen. Two of the world's most powerful telescopes will be involved, one in the US and the other in Australia. Now, they'll be used to eavesdrop on planets orbiting the million stars closest to Earth and the 100 nearest galaxies. Astronomers will be scanning space, listening out for potential radio signals coming from civilizations far beyond our solar system. Well, the search is said to be 50 times more sensitive and cover 10 times more of the universe than any previous hunt for life. Well, the search for life has already begun in our own solar system. Scientists and astrobiologists are exploring Mars for living organisms. They're also excited about Jupiter and its moon Europa, with the potential for life in what's thought to be a liquid ocean. It's tempting to think of our solar system sitting near lots of others, but in reality, we're light years away from other stars. Scientists have found hundreds of exoplanets, which are planets orbiting other stars, though there's no evidence of life beyond Earth. Our galaxy alone, the Milky Way, contains at least 100 billion stars. Even if we found intelligent alien life, it could take thousands of years to communicate because of the vast distances between us and them. Stephanie Hunt has more.
It's one of the greatest mysteries for us all. Is anyone out there? Now scientists and cosmologists, including Professor Stephen Hawking, are hoping to find some answers to the big questions.
We now know there are so many worlds, and organic molecules are so common that it seems quite likely that life is out there.
For many, our obsession with flying objects and extraterrestrial visitors occupies our minds and our screens.
Why are you here?
Gas tanks for the automobiles.
Orson Welles caused panic across the United States in 1938 when listeners tuned into his radio version of War of the Worlds and thought they were hearing reports of a real Martian invasion. But are these sci-fi shows and movies closer to reality than we think? Over the years, there have been endless sightings from so-called eyewitnesses.
It sort of hovered along the tree line a bit and then darted sharply up and to the left.
To more credible accounts. This from a former Canadian Defence Minister.
I say without equivocation, we are not alone in the cosmos. We have neighbours. We should try to get to understand them.
And one of the US astronauts who landed on the moon.
There's a number of us that have had these types of experiences to say, yes, we're not alone, we have been visited.
Airline pilots have reported more than 3,500 sightings.
Including silver discs maneuvering off the cockpit, off the wingtips, maneuvering around the airplane, seen by the pilot, the co-pilot and passengers of the plane, and then travelling off at thousands of miles an hour. That's a lot of evidence right there.
Professor Hawking reminds us that our Milky Way is huge, but only a tiny drop in the cosmic ocean. And the numbers alone make thinking about aliens perfectly rational. He says the possibilities are infinite and intriguing. Stephanie Hunt, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Well, time to bring our guests into the show. From Mountain View in California, Seth Shostak, Senior Astronomer and Director at the SETI Institute, that stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Research. In London, Francisco Diego, Senior Research Fellow at the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University College in London. And from Canberra, Professor Matthew Bales, Pro-Vice-Chancellor at the Swinburne University of Technology Centre for Astrophysics and Supercomputing. Now, he's also tasked with searching for alien life as part of the Breakthrough Listen initiative via the Parkes telescope. Welcome to you all. Let me start with Seth. Why is this the right time, Seth, to look for life beyond Earth?
Well, I'm not sure that there ever was a wrong time, but the reason this might be a better time is because of two things. One, we have the kind of equipment that would allow us to do a search fairly quickly of many star systems. And secondly, we've learned in the past 20 years that planets are as common as telephone poles. We found more than 5,000 planets. That's not really the point. The point is that you look up in the night sky and maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 of the stars up there has a planet that might be kind of a cousin of Earth. So it looks like if we're the only place where anything interesting is happening, then there's something very special about Earth. And while I like to think we're special, we may not be that special.
Why is it important for us, do you think, to know if we have cousins on another planet, as you put it there? Why is it important for the human psyche to know if are we alone, you know, that question?
Well, I think a lot of it is actually curiosity, and that sounds kind of frivolous, you know, curiosity. We don't need to spend a lot of money on curiosity, but in fact you do. It's exploration. We're talking about exploration, kind of calibrating how important we are in the grand scheme of things. You know, was it important to send Captain Cook into the South Pacific just to map the islands? Well, it had enormous consequences when he did that. To begin with, he found most of Australia. But beyond that, it's just, I think it's essential to humanity to know, you know, are we just one of many? Are we very rare? Those sorts of very big questions always play out in the long term in a way that it's better to know than not to know.
I'm glad you mentioned Australia there, because I want to take the discussion to Canberra now and ask Matthew, since you're going to be involved in the actual hunt for life, what exactly will you be doing?
So we'll be taking one of the world's biggest radio telescopes, in fact the Parkes radio telescope in New South Wales, and attaching the latest equipment to the back of it, if you like, so that we can scan the radio spectrum for signs of intelligent life.
You'll be snooping around the neighbourhoods, though, of what, some 1 million stars? Tell us a little bit about that.
We know that many, many planets have stars, a very high proportion of them. Probably quite a few of them have planets that are in the habitable zone. And unfortunately, even with the sort of world's biggest telescopes, we don't really have the power to just look at arbitrary places in the universe. We need to look at the nearest stars where we think we have the best chance of seeing them, because the closer they are, the brighter their signals will be.
All right, bright signals, a better chance now than in the past. Francisco, are you excited about all of this?
Very much so. We remember that famous novel by Carl Sagan, Contact, and the use of the Arecibo telescope, the largest in the world still today, to detect signals and to actually did transmit a signal, and can encode the signal up into space to one of the globular clusters in our galaxy, where there are a lot of stars there. And it is a fascinating project that it will captivate, no doubt, the imagination of a lot of people, especially young audiences, about what we are, where we are, and then how special we are in the universe. And whether we find alien life or alien intelligence or not, I think is almost beyond the point. The important thing is that this thing is happening, and it's going to be fantastic to know.
But hang on,
that,
Francisco, that is supposed to be the whole point, is finding the aliens. I mean, finding E.T. on that bicycle. What are the chances we might actually do that, do you think, that we'll find life outside of Earth?
Yes, we are talking about certainly billions of solar systems in our galaxy alone, and from them a large fraction of planets that may have similarities to the Earth and develop primitive life, which I convince exists in many places in the universe, or even in our solar system.
You're convinced?
Primitive life.
Why are you convinced? Tell us, why have you already drawn that conclusion? You're convinced that primitive life already exists? You're hiding some evidence that we don't know about?
No. Look, the only evidence we have is the evidence on Earth. And on Earth, the life on Earth started very quickly. As soon as the Earth was formed, we had a very primitive bacteria that came from chemical to biology very quickly. And the problem is, from evolution from bacteria to eukaryotic cells, which are more complex, to multicellular organisms, that took billions of years. And that is the problem, I think. But at the level of bacteria, there will be plenty of aliens, if you like, unable to transmit radio signals, of course.
All right, let's take some of that to Seth. What if life exists, but in a more simpler form, Seth? I mean, what if they're not communicating, even if they are more developed than human life? Maybe they're not communicating with the sort of radio signals that you guys are looking for. I mean, there are a lot of assumptions in this project, right?
Well, there are. I mean, look, if you were Klingons doing this kind of an experiment and you pointed your radio antennas at the Earth for the first 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, which is to say essentially all of it, you wouldn't have found any radio signals because, of course, the bacteria weren't broadcasting anything, nor were the trilobites or the dinosaurs. Only in the last 50, 100 years have we been sending powerful signals out into space. So you've got to look at a very large sample. That's the strategy here. You know, out of a million worlds with life, bacterial life or stuff that crawls around in the mud, you know, maybe one of them has a technologically advanced society. So if you look at millions of star systems, I think the odds are pretty good you're going to find something. I bet everybody here a cup of coffee will find a signal within the next 20 years. So, you know, at least that's something you get if we don't find them.
We're going to be waiting for that cup of coffee. But what are the odds? When you say the odds are pretty good, has anyone actually worked this out in terms of a mathematical equation?
Yeah, you can't really do that because what you don't know is if I give you 1 million planets that are like the Earth, right, and you just let them sit there for billions of years, what fraction of them will ever produce somebody who's clever enough to build a radio transmitter? We don't know the answer to that. Okay. We don't know what fraction of them will ever produce anything intelligent. That's the problem. You don't know. But this is exploration, so you have to go out and look because you can sit around in your office and think about it forever, and that won't answer the question.
All right, a lot of things we don't know, Matthew. There are scientists who say it's better not to poke around in things you don't know when it comes to space. How do you feel about that statement?
Well, I think I'd rather know about aliens before they know about us. I should stress we're listening, we're not transmitting.
So you're not sending any signals out at all? You're just trying to hear if anybody else is?
Correct.
If I may, I mean, what I would say is that it comes to the point that it is more efficient, if you like, to listen than to transmit. The transmission is necessarily unidirectional, and the listening comes from all parts of the sky. But the problem is that any other alien civilizations will be doing exactly the same. Is trying to receive, and nobody is talking, everybody's listening. Now, I understand from the sequel to this project is going to be called about message. It's not about listening, it's about sending messages. So eventually we will be sending messages as well. So we have to send messages and listen, although we have to take into account the amount of time for the signals to get to wherever they are going, and then any response will take thousands of years to come back.
Is that your understanding, Matthew? Is there a stage at which you're going to be sending messages as well as listening? I mean, what are your
There is a separate project, and there's $1 million prize for the most elegant message that we could send to aliens, should we find any.
What is that? Anyone have any ideas? Seth?
Yeah, I don't think it matters what the message is. There's a lot of debate about that. I've been to I don't know how many conferences in which people, including sociologists, anthropologists, whatever, they sit around and think, you know, what should we say to the aliens? Should we tell them that we go to war with one another? Should we tell them about what we're doing to the environment? I mean, what do we tell them? I don't think it matters. Look at what happened to the North American natives, the Indians in the Caribbean, when Columbus lands in 1492. Do you think it mattered what message they said to Columbus to begin with? He didn't understand them anyhow. And secondly, it wouldn't matter. The important message is that, hey, we're here, and, you know, we're intelligent enough for you to try and communicate with us. That's it. That's the message.
So, Seth, I mean, what sort of plan do you guys have? Sorry, I'm curious to know, what sort of plan do you have at this stage of what exactly would you do if you did pick up some kind of signal?
Yeah, I can...
We have some experience with that because we've had some false we've had some false alarms in which we picked up a signal and we thought for most of the day this might be the real deal. So what happens? What happens is you're spending all your time trying to confirm that that signal is really ET on the line and not just some interference from a telecommunications satellite or something similar. And in all that time, because there's no secrecy in SETI programs, in all that time, the press is calling you up. The newspapers, the radio stations, they're all calling you up and they want to know more about it. So what would really happen if you picked up a signal is that there would be this worldwide frenzy by the media to tell the world what was happening. And of course, you won't know very much at the beginning. It'll just be a very, very interesting story.
Fascinating, but Matthew, I guess you're the guy who's got the job of making sure, is this ET on the line or someone's mum? How do you technically do that?
Yeah, that might be overstating my role a little bit. I'm helping to come up with the equipment that will bolt onto the Parkes telescope. But I think one of the things you would do is you would go to a separate radio telescope in a very different location and check that you see the same sort of thing at that telescope before you get a bit too carried away sort of broadcasting to the world that you've found an alien, which might actually be somebody's cell phone in a forest nearby or something.
All right. Francisco, might it cause mass hysteria a la War of the Worlds? I mean, has everyone really thought this through?
Well, yes. Yes. Well, we must remember when Jocelyn Bell Brunel discovered these blips in the radio signals somewhere in Cambridge in the 1960s when she was doing her PhD. And they called those signals that appeared to be almost artificial because they were so regular and so nothing natural could explain that. They called those signals LGMs, which means little green men. And there was a little bit of mass hysteria about it. That's a scary acronym, isn't it? Well,
we found the little green men.
Well, that was the idea, but immediately after it was explained that some stars, when they collapse, the core of the stars will spin very fast and become like a radio beacon that will produce such kind of signal. And that was the discovery of the pulsars, for which her supervisor got the Nobel Prize. But mass hysteria, I don't think today we will have mass hysteria. I think it will be mass excitement. I think it will be I will be extremely excited if we have some evidence of alien intelligence. Absolutely, and a lot of people will do that. I will talk about mass excitement.
All right, but Seth, I mean, that example which Francisco gave is from 1967. Do you think the situation is kind of different in today's world of much more immediate and quick communication? As you said, Seth, this project is kind of trying to be open, showing everything. What data's been gathered immediately. I understand you're going to be exposing it online for people to assess. Anyone, your Joe Blogs can get out there, look at what you guys have found and make his own conclusions. Doesn't that have a bit of a downside to it as well as the upside?
Well, I'm not sure what the downside is. Look, it's the announcement of an interesting discovery. The idea that there would be mass panic, that people would riot in the streets. They wouldn't go to work in the morning. I'm not going to work, Bob. They found aliens. Come on, that's kind of silly. In fact, we knew in 1996, or we had an experiment in 1996, so that's not so long ago, in which there was this claim that they had found, Martian microbes in a rock. Okay, those are only microbes, only pond scum. The public's reaction to that was, oh, that's kind of interesting. Tell me more. The public is so saturated with aliens because they see them every night on TV and then they see them on the weekends in the multiplex. They fully expect that there are aliens out there. So if they read tomorrow's news in which it was reported that, hey, by the way, we found a signal coming from, 700 light years away, they would say, well, that's kind of interesting. This idea that the public couldn't handle the news, I think, greatly underestimates the public.
Interesting. So we've matured a lot, and if we do find aliens, people are just going to call in sick from work and use it as an excuse to get a day off rather than freak out. Francisco, there is a question here, the opposite old scenario. What if nothing is found? And at what point do you know that nothing has been found?
Well, the project is about 10 years long, and there will be hundreds and hundreds of hours of telescope time receiving these signals. And there is plenty of time scanning the whole sky. Of course, we are in a very instant in the history of humankind, in the history of the solar system, in the history of the galaxy. We are observing only in an instant, and that all that happens in that instant. These signals have been traveling through space for hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of years until they reach us. So it's going to be, I don't know, very difficult to put all these ideas together. But if we really don't detect anything, doesn't mean that there is absence. I mean, the evidence for absence, it will not be, the absence of evidence will not be evidence for absence, but it will place us in a very special place. We say, well, probably we are alone. And if that is the case, we carry the flame of intelligence in our own galaxy. And that makes us unique in that respect. We are insignificant in this little corner, in the little corner of the galaxy, but we are intelligent and we can analyze and understand the universe. And if we come to the conclusion, at least at this stage, that we are the only species able to do that, then that puts us in a very privileged position, and in a way, with an enormous degree of, I would call, cosmic responsibility.
Right. At least until the little green men come knocking on the door saying, fooled you guys.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's bring Matthew into the discussion.
I don't know, yeah.
Since we're talking about here, at the point at which we might know that we are alone, just putting into perspective from a technical perspective, you're looking at a particular type or searching for a particular type of radio signal. Is that the correct term to call it? And there are many types of signals that one could look for, right? So this is by no means a sort of definitive search of all possible signals out there.
Yeah, that's correct. We can look very easily for sort of narrow spikes of emission at a particular radio frequency. If the aliens are sending kind of coded messages or enveloping them in other transmissions that are a little bit less easy to detect, they could go straight past us and we may not even realize what we've been seeing. So I don't think at the end of this we're going to know that we're definitely alone, but we'll probably know that in our local vicinity of the galaxy there is nothing particularly obvious. It's one thing if they want to be found. It's another thing if we have to rely on kind of strayed transmissions or deliberate transmissions between one bunch of aliens and another.
Seth, what do you make of those who say, look, we should be, if we're looking at the most likely places for life, well, we've got it right here, planet Earth. It's got all the conditions for life. There is life on it. Hopefully you and I are alive. But why not look at the question of whether life has started over and over multiple times on Earth, and whether maybe there are other aspects to life on Earth that we're not really thinking of?
Well, that's a slightly different question, but it's a very good question. And there are people who are doing that because, after all, you look at all life on Earth today and it's all related to one another, right? It's all DNA based. Every school kid knows that. But, it could have been that the original life on Earth was based on some other molecule, Q and A, X and A, who knows what, right? And then a big rock slams into the Earth in the early days and it sterilizes everything. And then life gets started again. And this time it's, LNA or something like that. I mean, you don't know. It's very hard to find that evidence because DNA has been so successful that it's kind of overrun everything. And also the Earth, it has weather, it has plate tectonics. It tends to kind of erase the evidence. But the idea that there may have been multiple, if you will, origins of life on this planet is a very legitimate question. It's hard to find out the answer to that, but people are looking at it.
It's hard to find the answer. I'm sure you guys are going to continue looking for it, as you said. Hopefully you'll find something. We'll be doing this show again, who knows, with maybe one of the guests an alien life form. Until then, let's thank our guests very much. From Mountain View in California, Seth Shostak; in London, Francisco Diego; and from Canberra, Professor Matthew Bales. And thank you for watching. As always, we'd like to hear from you too. Just send us a signal. You can get in touch with us by going over to our program page at aljazeera.com, or you can post your comments on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. Or why not tweet us at AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami Zaidan, and the whole team, for now, it's goodbye.